Hi, this is Tamara. Welcome to your March tune-up. So let's look at an overview of March to begin with. We have Mercury in retrograde, and this is in Pisces, which is a water sign. It is kind of like the fish in the ocean of consciousness, and there's a lot of watery energy here because we have the sun in Pisces. This is a time that I think of as consciousness raising through the feeling state and the feeling awareness and the musing that happens in between the conscious and unconscious state. So it's almost a good time, almost a better time for thinking things through a state of musing, using things like tarot cards, poetry, reading inspirational work that brings you into, it sets off the ahas in your mind. That's kind of what March is made for. It's not a super logical placement. It's not a placement that's really a lot about facts and figures. And as you know, when we have a Mercury retrograde, it tends to fuzzy our thinking anyway. And in Pisces, it's almost like thinking underwater. It's almost like when we used to, in the pool in summer, as kids, we would go under the pool and pretend we were going to have a tea party and try to guess what the other person was saying. That's what communicating in water is like. So think of March as a time. It's also before the astrological new year, when we get that fiery new Aries energy. It's really a time to wrap up so many loose ends that we have. Pisces is the 12th sign. It's the last sign of the zodiac. And it's a time of completions. It's a time of taking the broad view and the broad feeling view. Really having an understanding. I feel like this Mercury retrograde space wants us to come to resolution and resolve around emotional issues that we've done a lot of thinking about. And we're going to be retrograding, thinking, going backwards, thinking and feeling about things that we have been trying to resolve. So that's one of the keywords that I feel for March is a time of resolution and thinking about how we can forgive, how we can release, how we can send things up to a higher space, having a higher wisdom or understanding around the circumstances that have bothered us. And it's a time of prayer or devotional practice. It's not a time to necessarily get some kind of a concrete answer for yourself, but more to find a place inside you where you can rest with the feeling of completion, if that makes sense. So my personal Mercury is not in Pisces, so I'm having to sort of guess with this energy what this would be like to have this wateriness in your thinking space. It's almost much more of an intuitive space and not a logical space at all. So that's sort of an overview of what we're coming into this March is a slowing down of the pace, a time when we are using devotional practices or yoga or art or writing poetry, reading poetry to inspire us to resolve and release old patterns. Pisces is so much about patterns that have gone subconscious in ourselves. Patterns that we're not even aware of, instinctive responses like being hurt over and over again every time you think a certain thought. And this is a moment where you're not necessarily going to change the thought, but you might go beyond the thought and just reach for the feeling that is beyond that hurt thought. In other words, you would need higher forces for that. You would need a surrender to a higher principle. And one of those principles, for example, might be understanding that you are not responsible for the hurt others have caused you. Your responsibility is in releasing the meaning of that hurt in your own psyche. Often we want to take responsibility for others' behaviors or mishaps, and it ends up in our space as judgment. This person did this person did that. I don't like this person for whatever reason. This person hurt me. And it's because we're trying to take responsibility for the mistake they made. So consider that as you move through this resolving type of energy that we have in the Pisces month of March, because we're going to be in this retrograde space, and so you may as well use it in ways that really benefit you. And your thoughts sit in your emotions. They sit in your emotional body and they activate the emotional body. And so this is a really great time to just say, who does that belong to? Return to sender. If there's a thought that you're having repetitively that's really bothering you and causing an activation of hurt inside your instinctive self or your emotions, something that's really firing you up every time you think about it, it just re-wounds you. And remember that we just released Chiron in Pisces, and there's a blog on my website about the end of Chiron in Pisces, which I had a particular interest in. So if you want to look that up, you can, just on TamaraChilds.com to read that. But, leaving the Chiron in Pisces space had to do with letting go of the meaning we have around self-sacrifice, the meaning we have around being in pain, no gain, no pain, no spiritual gain. So we're moving into a new space now. Chiron has moved into a new area of Aries, which has more to do with courage and identity and individualism. So we're releasing that sort of martyr thing that was going on for the past almost 10 years with Chiron and Pisces. And it's important to use this month of March to really complete on those issues. If there's anything still left, any residue, we're going to really want to clean that out. As I had said in the blog on the full moon in Virgo, that its job was really almost like a soul colonic, which is sort of a funny way to say it, but it's really about releasing the stuff that's embedded in our emotional tissues and letting it go. So I drew a few cards for March, just using tarot right now for our symbols to get the messages. And I received the Six of Swords, the Ten of Swords, the World, and the Eight of Coins. The Six of Swords has to do with taking a conscious journey to separate from stress, moving away from the things that you've consciously decided to separate from. The Ten of Swords has to do with the scars around an ending and the conscious recognition of endings and the full meaning that ending had for you, as well as the scarring around that ending. The World has to do with completion, and it has to do with a new world that you're creating. And then the Eight of Coins has to do with the intensity and commitment to work, the daily work that you do when you're creating something. So let's put this all together. So it's interesting drawing these cards because, again, we are completing the Pisces cycle, Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, retrograde. And it's really a time of completion. It's really a time, though, of conscious recognition of the things that you really, the work you've already done on yourself, the situations that haven't worked out. It's okay to notice what those are and stamp them complete. You can actually think of an ink pad in your mind, take a piece of paper with the situation and stamp it complete. You could even do this in real time if you want. Write it out and then write complete or stamp it complete. There's a sense sometimes with the Ten of Swords that we have to keep ruminating on the details of, it's like if you had a journal entry about a really bad day and you keep rereading that journal entry and taking the words in and you're really feeling almost like they're tattooed on you. Well, this is a time. The Six of Swords is about moving away from that experience. It's about moving away from the tattoos of pain that we have identified ourselves with. So just think of it that way. This month, one of the things for you to do, what we've already talked about, the divination or the devotional practice, the prayer, the yoga, the poetry reading, the reading of anything inspirational, has to do with letting go of the tattoos of pain that have held you in place. You're not tattooed by them. They were just written down. And so whatever you can do symbolically, take it out of you. So if you were to see it as like a tattoo, something tattooed on your skin, you want to get that out on a piece of paper and then burn it in the stove or something. You want to do something ritually to say, I can separate from this. It's not tattooed in my being, so to speak. So whatever it is that you've had, whatever residue that you're still working on from the whole Chiron and Pisces thing, the self-sacrifice, or I have to feel guilty or shamed or bad, just think of that as a pastime tattoo, and you're going to let it go. And this is a wonderful time to do it, to just ritualize it. You want to feel it in your body because Pisces is a feeling time. This is not like really a super rational time. So ritualizing things really work well for the subconscious and the emotional body. It really loves ritual. That's why we get married in front of friends and family. That's why we have rituals around celebrating birthdays, is because the subconscious and the emotions love to have some kind of ritual. Now the world is telling me that we really are moving into new worlds. We're really completing on an old world. So this month, think about that. Think about the world that you're completing. You might be completing the world of having kids who have now left the nest. And so now you have a new world in front of you without younger kids in your life. They're older kids now. Or you might be in a new phase with your body, and that's a new world for you. So any world, and you might even, I love to journal these things, ritualize it because your subconscious loves it. So create a ritual around what's my new world and what world was I leaving behind. And remember that everything you're creating takes time. This Eight of Coins is a wonderful reminder that when you really love what you're creating, it won't feel like work, it'll feel like play. But you still know that it's work. You know that you're putting in a commitment, and that feels good to you. And this again has to do with routines. It has to do with ritualizing. It has to do with, I'm remaking my body into something more beautiful. So I get up every morning and I do some prayer and meditation and then some yoga, and that locks it in as a routine that I am committed to. So how can you commit every day in March to this ritual new beginning, this new world that you're creating? I just drew one more card for us, and what I got was the Chariot. And the Chariot has to do with soul vehicles, as well as to some degree ego vehicles, but sometimes you have to see the difference between the two and know what is a vehicle for my ego right now. And there's nothing wrong with an ego. So sometimes your ego needs a compliment. Sometimes your ego needs to make a certain dollar amount and feel like you're taking care of yourself. So just identify what the ego needs are of the new world that you're going into, and also the soul needs. What are the soul needs of the new vehicle? And what vehicles work for your soul? For some reason, when I look at this card, I feel like telling you that this may have to do with a shifting identity too, just because we got the World card with it. And the lower arcana cards are, really releasing the patterns and the conscious decision to leave pain tattoos behind and moving into this new world with a new vehicle. And the message I'm getting for you is to ask your soul this month to give you an image or a download of the next or better vehicle. It can be an archetype. It can be like, oh, I'm Zeus on Mount Olympus, or it can be Miss Piggy. It could be anything that's fun for you, anything that makes you feel empowered, anything that feels like you and it feels expansive in your body. That's a yes. And so try that out. Try downloading, asking your soul, okay, I'm ready for a new image, a self-image for the soul, say. a new vehicle for the soul. And then again, this month is so much about ritualizing what we're learning because we don't have a lot of logic to guide us. So we're going to use what the subconscious and emotional body love, which is ritual. We're going to write it into a song, create a poem, draw a picture of it, or write it as a journal entry. So that's March, and I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, comment, and share this video if you find it. And I would love to hear back from you. Also, I have some new offerings in the links below. I have a brand new e-course called Understanding Empaths, and this is for sensitive people who want to delve into their own sensitivity and really master it and become the masters of difference between what's yours and what's not yours, other people's energy. And so check that out on my, I'll put the page below. And have a wonderful month. I hope you really enjoyed March. Blessings to you. Lots of love.